He's destroying everything. That is what Raymond on YouTube says, and that is in fact exactly what is happening in the United States of America. Will it be united in the next 4 years? Will, as apparently Secretary of State in California has filed a motion to create a petition for the state of California to secede from the union. Will we be broken apart? Find out. But first, a word from hell. Welcome to the Bitchuation Room podcast. I am Francesca Fiorentini, your host. We have such a terrible show, just the worst show, like truly the worst show. But I mean, everyone should keep watching. It's very exciting, exciting times for all the wrong reasons. But no, we are going to be joined by comedian Pallavi Gunalan in just a moment, as well as one of the co-hosts of Citations Needed pod, Adam Johnson. We're going to talk all about the onslaught of the Trump administration on working people, poor people, women, everyday people in this latest federal funding freeze. But more specifically, we're also going to talk about the ICE raids. There's actually kind of a funny angle to them, and we'll get into it. I know. We're going to talk about I mean, if you thought you had a good rant on social medias lately, you didn't beat the president of Colombia with an O. We're going to talk about Gustavo Petro's rant against Trump, the sort of spat they had over the weekend, the pushback on some of these deportation flights on which people are being handcuffed as if they are criminals. And lo and behold, MAGA does not see any difference between criminals and immigrants who are here without papers. So whatever you're doing right now, I mean, I hope it's good. I hope whatever you're doing is like healing. Like I hope you're like doing a little bit of stretching or yoga or whatever, or like, you know, you're like cleaning the spot on the floor that you need to clean, but then also listening to this show and watching it. Thank you so much for being here. Press all the buttons, click all the things, ring all the bells on YouTube so you know when we're going live. If you're listening as a podcast in the future, I know we don't make it, so it's fine. I'm not going to ask anymore. But if you could, you know, when the aliens find the ruins of our civilization, they're going to be like, but how many stars did the Bitchuation Room have on Apple Podcasts? Was it 5? It better be fucking 5, people. So please rate and share this podcast. And remember that this show is truly thanks to, well, one of our sponsors, but also you and you alone. Thank you so much in advance for becoming a patron, patreon.com/bitchuationroom, or a member on YouTube where you get access to all of our bonus content. There's more perks on Patreon, discounts on merch, access to the American Prospect magazine and discounts on that, extra special discounts off of our sponsor. But if you're a YouTube babe, I don't blame you. I feel you. It still goes a long way. Last week, which feels like a million years ago, we had a bonus episode. We talked a lot about the bird flu, because at this point, I'm rooting for bird flu. I'm just like, look, I'm like definitely China pilled. After DeepSeek, China pilled and bird flu pilled. So holler at that. And thank you so much in advance for everyone who did. You can also tip the show, TBR-Live on Venmo, TBR Live on Cash App. And I just want to give a special shout out before we get the show started to a man who has been working with the Bitchuation Room since pretty much the year that we began in 2020 in earnest. helping us with our YouTube game, getting us up to speed, cutting those clips and putting them out there, helping us, figure out how and when to go to all you trolls who might have found me from Piers Morgan and all of that. And his name is Maximilian Inhofe, and he is leaving the show because he has a job or whatever, like a real job. But we are welcoming Brent Godin to the team, and we're saying a very, very loving and hearty thank you, Maximilian. I want everyone, all the vowels on Maximilian, no maxing with Maximilian. If you're gonna have a name to the max, it's got to be Maximilian. So thank you, Maximilian, for everything that you've done. You are wonderful, and we're gonna miss you so much. And with that, let's get into what are you bitching about? So it has happened. Donald Trump is making good on all of the terror that he promised under Project 2025, under then Agenda 47, which, if you remember, was sort of no, this is it's got my name on it. Same crap, hollow out the federal government, use the federal government to give massive tax breaks to the wealthy and effectively create an upward siphon of money from the poor, the disabled, children, the elderly, and give it to tech oligarchs. And we're seeing that now in real time as the Office of Management and Budget, which is actually not currently under the Project 2025 guy. It's under some interim a-hole. But again, paper pusher, who knows? In which it stated, although this does not sound like a paper pusher statement, a two-page little memo, a little cute little memo here, just 2 pages. Just a little sweet little Tuesday morning 2 pages, in which the directive is to pause all agency grants and loans programs. Now, sometimes that might sound like, oh, okay, is this a pause on, student loan debt programs, which obviously would be a big deal in and of itself? Is it a pause on, I don't know, Fulbright scholarships, which it is? No. This is a pause on everything from all benefits, EBT, SNAP food benefits, Meals on Wheels, WIC for early childhood, right? Early Head Start programs. These are nutritional programs for newborn babies and access to formula for their impoverished mothers, the things that JD Vance and every other Christian nationalist wants to grow exponentially in this country. A pause on all of that, including Medicaid, right? Which, what is it? 75 million people in this country are recipients of some form of, covers healthcare for millions of seniors as well. And 40% of births in America is covered under Medicaid. Those are all frozen right now, guys. That is what's happened. But here's the real thing. Because if you thought this was for no reason, there's a reason, and I really think we should listen to the Trump administration. Per copy of the memo, the use of federal resources to advance Marxist equity, transgenderism, and Green New Deal social engineering policies is a waste of taxpayer dollars that does not improve the day-to-day lives of those we serve. So if you, new meaning to the term red diaper baby, am I right? All these ingrates, these, ingrate 8-month-old straight tankies who are already up on TikTok spreading their Green New Deal transgenderism, their green transgenderism ideology. They don't deserve any of these benefits. F that. So, guys, this sounds like it was written by it just sounds like the diary of a libertarian. Obviously, the pages are all stuck together, and you know why. This is the burn book of Stephen Miller, right? This is his little vision board. And it's coming to fruition. And the vision board really was Project 2025. We all talked about it. We all saw it coming. Funny how there's straight up no plan to combat it. Democrats are allegedly meeting tomorrow afternoon to discuss what's been going on. Meanwhile, some of them are like Maxwell Frost over here from Florida, a representative, sort of newest representative of the squad, is one of the many who are sounding the alarms. We've been on the phone with multiple agencies and organizations. They've been completely cut off from federal money. We're talking housing, homeless services, public safety, etc. I'm calling a press conference today to explain how this could have drastic local impacts on our constituents. So good on Maxwell Frost. Some people are obviously taking this seriously. Others are like, can he do that? He's doing it. That's the point. It is happening already. Now, of course, it's all under the guise of this is anti-DEI, but if we've learned nothing, let us, for the people in the effing back, they don't care about DEI programs. DEI programs, whatever you might think of them, meaning they're good, they're inclusive, they're often very corporate, they're often very capitalist led. They're mostly a way to market to, POC and queer people who honestly are a good share of the market. They need to go even farther. We probably need reparations. We probably need universal programs that disproportionately do help people of color, on and on and on and on and on. But they're a stopgap, DEI measures. It is a Trojan horse to just go after all programs. All the programs. These are universal programs. They don't come in there and are like, gee, what color is your child? No, it's poverty. It's people who can't, it's seniors who rely on SNAP benefits. And if you remember, during the expansion of some of the SNAP benefits, they were eating, and they were eating good. And you know what that meant? It meant they could afford vegetables. So this is where so-called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, is aiming its wrath rather than, subsidies to fossil fuel companies, $20 billion a year, subsidies to tech companies like SpaceX so they can launch another fucking rocket that explodes halfway up. That seems like, if you want to make some money, you could go after tax dodgers who are billionaires. You could get a lot of money like that. No, we have to defund the IRS. So, it's not surprising that this is happening. I think the surprising thing is, what is the plan? And honestly, it's wild how many people have been caught flat-footed on this. It's wild Democrats don't have a plan. It's wild that people who work in these sectors, also are like, I don't know. Street movements and mass movements and demonstrations and labor unions. It's like, there is no plan. That's not to say there can't be one and one won't emerge, but it's quite terrifying. Before I leave this, we just have to watch, the kind of douchebaggery that is behind these efforts. Number one, it's all Republicans, but also let's throw in any Democrat who's like, I really want to work with Doge. Hello, Rokana. If you or your people are watching, what you got to say about it, huh? Anyway, here is a representative, I believe out of Florida, and he's being asked on CNN about school lunch programs, which are being cut under this federal funding freeze, which, by the way, before we quite look at it really quickly, they're saying maybe not all Medicaid. They're saying, okay, well, it's going to effective tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern, but maybe not all programs. Programs can easily regain that money. All they have to do is show us 2,600 programs, school meals, WIC nutritional program, wildfire preparedness, not that there are wildfires, Medicare enrollment assistance program, USAID, mine inspections, since when? A reintegration program from homeless veterans who all they have to do is prove that this program does not provide funding that is implicated by the directive to end DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and accessibility. Ooh, let's add that extra little knife for, the disabled Americans among us, under whatever name they appear. Does this program promote gender ideology? Does this program promote or support in any way abortion or other related activities as identified by the Hyde Amendment? Again, rescinding any federal funds from organizations that might even mention that there is another way. Meaning, I mean, honestly, at this point, I think termination is the way. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I wouldn't bring right now in this Christian nationalism. I don't know, man. Definitely not, depending on the state you're in. So anyway, this is the kind of cruelty that these Republicans so gleefully embrace these kinds of moves.
Would you support getting rid of, school lunch for vulnerable kids and breakfast and Head Start, for example, and getting rid of childhood cancer research? Do you support that? And what do you say to your constituents? I want to follow up on that question, too, because I didn't hear an answer from you.
I don't know about you, but I worked since I was, before I was even 13 years old. I was picking berries in the fields before we had child labor laws that precluded that. I was a paper boy. And when I was in high school, I worked my entire way through. You're telling me that kids who stay at home instead of going to work at Burger King, McDonald's during the summer, should stay at home and get their free lunch instead of going to work? I think we need to have a top-down review. Think about where kids need to actually be.
A top-down review of children, people. A top-down review of grade school children, because this a-hole picked berries. Look at his face. I'm sorry. In a way, that dude worked in a fucking farm. I'm sorry. He just didn't work in a field. That's just not what happened. He will be, though, if the deportations continue. So that is the level of cruelty and insanity that we are now auditing, or suggesting that we should audit children for whether or not they have a job so they can pay for their lunch. Oh, what if they're disabled and they're not able to work? Doesn't matter. Oh, what if they have to, I don't know, go to school? That doesn't matter either. You should probably not do any homework, not learn anything. Just go to your job after school, so you can earn your lunch. That's the way I did it. He most certainly did not. That is, again, who we've empowered in this country. We'll talk about who's empowered them. We'll talk about what we do. I really appreciate some of the comments. Les Watts saying we have to look for stories where working class is achieving victories, no matter how small. Yes, we are. Whole Foods, I believe was in New York. I don't know. Whole Foods, first Whole Foods to unionize in the country. This is massive. Costco, for those people who think Costco is the answer to Target abolishing DEI programs. Costco workers have voted to go on strike if their demands are not met in a couple of days now, January 31st. So we might be having a boycott a lot more than just Target, which honestly is kind of like a real, I love my Target. It's going to be hard for me, guys. All right. And with that, before we bring in my lovely guest, let me let you know that when the heart palpitations get real strong on a day like today, sometimes you just need to relax a little bit. Doesn't mean you check out. Doesn't mean you get high in the middle of the day. Are you kidding me? What? Some of you will, and some of you do. However, some of us have to work. Sunset Lake CBD, they are a sponsor of this show. I have relied on Sunset Lake CBD, so I can't even speak, Sunset Lake CBD, to get to sleep at night. With their Goodnight gummies that have only 1 milligramo of THC, which is very exciting. Gets you that dream spot. I also love their Focus gummies that have cordyceps in them. Their Relax gummies, I think, have reishi mushroom in them. They're just amazing products. They also have all kinds of things, from coffee to lotion to balms and salves that really help with like sore muscles. They grow, harvest, and ship all of their craft CBD products directly to you from their farm in northern Vermont, where I hope we can move and then, start the revolution right under. We'd have to probably check it over with them first. Again, free shipping on orders over $75, and with a coupon code FRANTIFA, FRANTIFA at checkout, you get 20% off your entire order. sunsetlakecbd.com. Check it out, y'all. And with that, let me bring in to the show a comedian who you know and love, who's been on this show before, but not nearly enough. Please welcome Pallavi Gunalan.
I'm losing it at Frantifa. Oh my God. We haven't heard enough about Antifa lately.
I know.
They're not getting the traction they deserve.
Well, now we are all Antifa. Antifa's like Chuck Schumer, like, I am Antifa. And you're like, okay,
It's like
well,
the tiredest Spartacus.
totally, totally. I know. Where's I mean, Antifa did get pardoned. 1,500 Antifa were let go from their
Oh,
work
that's
on
true.
January 6th. So
And then some of them got like rearrested for being pedophiles, and one dude got shot. So
one dude was shot by the cops, which is very much like, I don't know how to feel. Like, I'm like,
yeah,
you shouldn't be shot by the police as someone who does not like police violence. But am I gonna
maybe
miss
somebody's
you?
gonna get shot.
There's somebody gotta get.
If we need
Considering
to
how
use human shields,
exactly
against the cops.
use them as, I mean, that's effectively what they are. Like Trump pardoned all the Gen Sixers to be like, so you will be my human shields in the future, right? And they're like, cool.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes, I had that in my Orange Man Bad segment. But before we get to that, Pallavi, what are you bitching about today?
Okay, this is like very all encompassing. I
Mm.
am bitching about weak bitches. Okay. Because it runs the gamut. It's like
Mhm.
people who played at the inauguration that would never have done that in 2016, or just regular people in your life who are becoming more emboldened to support Trump because they're like, well, he's the president and we chose that and maybe it's fine to go this way. Or it's also people who can't hold like two thoughts in their head at once. They're like,
Mhm.
if if Biden Harris genocide bad, Trump good, and you're just like, learn anything, like learn how to have a backbone, learn how, sometimes things can be contradictory. Stop making things that are complex simple and simple complex. Like there is nuance to
Mm.
things, but also there's no nuance to human empathy. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
it just it's pissing me off. I saw this tweet that I don't know if this actually happened, but it's the vibe. I'm like, we need to embody this vibe more. I
Sure.
saw a tweet saying that the Border Czar Tom Homan, which little too close to human, but not quite, which is his whole vibe, uh,
Homan.
is saying that people are too educated to like because they're escaping from ICE in Chicago. Like Chicago is too educated to get arrested effectively. And somebody quote tweeted that by saying, at the furrow said, witnesses said a bus driver told an ICE agent to, quote, gargle his balls when the latter requested to enter the bus. And I'm like, yeah, this is what you do. Somebody
Yes.
was like, that's proper praxis. Alexander underscore Avina said that's proper praxis. And I'm like, we need to fucking learn how to bully these dorks, okay?
Yes.
We need to
Yes.
learn how to stand up. And even people, I said this on another podcast that I was on earlier today. We need to learn how to tell people who are like our friends from college that work at arms companies that they suck,
Yeah.
that they're part
No,
of the
that's
problem. Like, stop being a weak bitch and make the world the better place that we need it to be, you know?
I love that. I mean, first of all, you kind of went on a different direction there in terms of like, yeah, putting your money where your mouth is. And like, I know a lot of good people who work at like awful places.
Yeah. And
And I'm like, all right, but are you a patron of the show? But no, like,
I
it's
know.
true that you really have to redirect like what, if you've got skills, you can get hired elsewhere. Um,
Yeah. Or,
and
I mean, I understand there are circumstances that prevent some people from having that choice, but these are people who have access and resources and connections and that are just choosing to enrich themselves because they don't want to make waves or because they were
right.
told this is the dream and it's acceptable and it's okay to, as long as you're rich, like it's
Yeah.
morally okay. And it's not.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think that's really apt. And in terms of weak bitches, they are abound, and they are in government. They are Democrats. Obviously they're Republicans, the weakest of the bitches. They're in media. There are a lot of people who, in this very fun little interim time, were like, maybe we can work with Trump. He's got some good ideas. It's just like, when are the Pentagon getting cut? When's the Pentagon fails its audit every effing year? When are they going to cut the budget? When's that gonna happen? Oh no.
Listen, that's the only time I'm related to the Pentagon is like being over budget on a monthly basis. I'm like, stop making the Pentagon relatable.
The Pentagon will. I feel like our like justice or our like military apparatus. I mean, now it's going to change, but like, doesn't the CIA have like a sort of cheeky tweet every year? And you're like, ew, who are you? I feel like the Pentagon's about to be like, oopsies, when you ran up your man's credit card.
I know. It's like the Israel Twitter handle. It's like so gross and weird.
But I love it. Yes, we need more gargle these nuts energy in our lives, and we need it for the fight ahead. But until then, let's go into just some of the other smatterings of awful that happened in our segment that I have been calling Orange Man Bad. Here we go.
Like
well, it happened. So Teletubby energy. Rapey Pete Hegseth is confirmed to head the largest budget in the world. He's also a drunk. He's just gonna drink it away. He's just gonna drink it away, guys. Why would you give him the biggest budget? He's just gonna drink it away. Meanwhile, Trump fires senior officials at the one senior official at the National Labor Relations Board, which makes it unable to function. But please tell me more about how he's on the side of the working class, real populist. Trump fires 17 inspectors general whose job it is to literally do what Doge does. They look for waste, they look for fraud, they look for abuse. They are the hallmongers. And of course, we got to get rid of them because they will tattle on us, and nobody likes a snitch in this mafia. He also, Trump fired DOJ officials who worked on the Jack Smith case about election interference on Jan 6. And the CDC has been ordered to stop working with the World Health Organization just on the cusp of, I don't know, however many more pandemics we've got. And then the two Jan 6ers we talked about, they've met interesting fates. One was shot and killed by a cop during an altercation. Another was caught soliciting sex from a minor. Which, I'm like, just wait like a month. You know what I'm saying?
I know. It's like you're back out on these streets ready to do another insurrection.
Shout out to all the ladies in elementary school. And that has been Orange Man Bad. It's short because there's a lot more, Pallavi, we've got to get into. Specifically, the mass deportation angle. Now that we've talked about the federal freeze, which is going to be insane, and who knows how much of it's going to hold, let's talk about this. This is the week where. Okay, so this is the week where that ICE is ramping up its raids on workplaces, schools, churches, communities. They are specifically, I think the stinging part is the workplaces thing, because it's like, oh, you're straight up targeting people who are like the opposite of everything you're saying. They have a job. They go to it every day. They are not criminals. They are hardworking people. And that's where a lot of undocumented folks have been swept up. And this is just a really revealing little tweet that, again, our boy, Stephen Miller, what does Miles call him? Teenage Mutant Ninja Goebbels, which is pretty much the name for Stephen Miller. That's Miles from Daily Zeitgeist. He said, in response to someone saying that Trump officials have issued quotas to ICE officers to increase the number of arrests from a few hundred a day to at least 1,500. And then the quote tweet is of an article from the Washington Post that says 1,200 to 1,500 people who are increasing the chances that non-criminals will be detained, right? If you've got a quota like that, inevitably, in fact, by design, as I'm going to read, this is about just sweeping everybody up. Stephen Miller says, non-criminals is a strange word to use for the foreign nationals who've broken into America, stolen jobs. Oh no, you stole my job at a chicken coop. Oh, that egg farm job I was really gunning for. Stolen identities, illegally refused to appear before an immigration judge. That's also bullshit. Illegally refused to depart when ordered and illegally claimed tax benefits, illegally paid cartels. Okay, now he's just gone off of it. Now, the real focus, Pallavi, is the fact that he's saying, like, there's no such thing as non-criminals when you're here without papers, which really goes to the heart of what this entire immigration discussion has been. And sadly, something Democrats were not able to counter because their policies were just as nearly as awful. I mean, what, 500 a day is still terrible. Biden's policies were still terrible, but not being able to say, hey, look, they are trying to target all immigrants. That is the point. And by virtue of the fact that you crossed into the United States without, going through the proper channels or what have you, even though they are deporting people who went through proper channels, canceling those programs, that's the crime. The crime isn't you were doing drug running. The crime isn't, you killed anybody. The crime isn't you stole something. The crime is you're here without papers. That is the crime, which is not actually a federal crime.
Yeah, it really undermines like the rule of law for this law and order president. I think it's going to really open up people's in different communities' eyes to realize that the law is not always ethical. The law is not always moral. It's not always something that we want to support. It tears apart families. It destroys communities. And so I think by sticking to this, by saying like, this is illegal, this is against the law, people are going to hopefully start questioning whether they should just blindly support the state. Yep. And this man whose face is a crime. I mean, Stephen Miller, come on, man. You're in your 30s? Come on. Are you kidding me?
I mean, yeah, this is I mean, I think we really do need to rethink, obviously, how we think about immigration and the fact that, yes, the whole we're going to get rid of the criminals, that's just getting rid of undocumented people writ large, and that's what he's admitting to right there. But here's the thing. Did you think that the ICE raids would also include Dr. Phil? Because guess what? They do.
Later today, actually, we're going to have to go after these people out in a free environment where an apartment complex or an apartment project where there are a lot of civilians around. And if they resist, if they open fire on these agents who have to return fire, then people can get caught in the crossfire if a car chase ensues.
So that is Dr. Phil McGraw, who is, again, one of Oprah's creations, not her best work.
Pay for her crimes. She needs to pay for these doctor crimes, okay?
Yes,
Dr.
and it's
Oz,
not by
Dr.
running for
Phil.
office. Yeah, Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil. I mean, maybe we'll forgive her for Marianne Williamson, but she's got her own weird, like, teaching in miracles.
Gail,
Oh yeah, Gail's great. I mean, Gail facing down R. Kelly like that. Anyway, the point is this: Dr. Phil's out here in Chicago, fantasizing about crossfire with all of the violent criminals he is helping. These Border Czar, the Border Czar, Tom Homan, how all the ICE raids that he's helping him do, the Pallavi sort of like talked about earlier. Homan's having some trouble because people in Chicago seem to be knowing their rights. So he's pissed off about that. And that people are telling him to gargle their nuts and things like that. But here's Dr. Phil, again, I guess he's a psychologist. I'm not sure if he still even has his license. He's mostly just browbeats people, which I'm like, why can't you browbeat undocumented people out of here? Which he tries to do. We'll see in a second. Here he is with Dr. Homan, with Tom Homan, just again talking about all the raids they're about to do.
You're going targeted. If a criminal is working in a business and you have to pick them up there, you're going in for that target.
Absolutely.
And what's happening to me, it seems that these politicians are creating what they fear the most, and that is forcing ICE agents into the community where they pick up the target and wind up picking up collaterals that may be around them, as opposed to going to the jail where they just get the target and leave.
That's the game they want to play, and so, game on. We're going to do it. I mean, it's all about public safety. We're going to take that public safety threat off the street by any means necessary. If we can't get in the jail, then we'll go in the neighborhood.
You can't
One of the most empathetic things that I love to do is call people collaterals and illegals. I love that. That's my favorite thing to do to show that I care about America.
You know, like, what does this do to the mental health, though? I'm just like looking at Dr. Phil talking about like mental health awareness month. You know, like, what does it do to your mental health when you are fucking deported and rounded up from your place of work? So he's basically like, yeah, you got no choice. Yeah, you're gonna go there because these politicians won't let you have free access to all these people. You gotta go there and get the so-called criminals with a bunch of collaterals. And Tom Homan, who, by the way, speaks like a severely dyslexic high school bully, and I really apologize to anyone who I might be, but you know that bully. We know the high school bully is like, hey, I don't go, just said, yeah, we're gonna go in there. I can't fully talk.
What are you,
I got,
queer? Are you queer?
yeah, that's
Is
what
that
I'm
what
real
you
cool.
are?
Like, she didn't put out, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I heard she, you know, it's just like spreading rumors. Like, hey, why does he talk like this? And he's just like, he is like such a human slug. He's so disgusting. And the fact that he just like cannot enunciate his words is just like, he's such a Nazi.
Why do these people come to the US and not speak English, Tom Homan? Like,
yeah.
Why can't
Exactly. You show us how it's done, mister. So here's Dr. Phil, and this is, I can't tell if this is to promote a show on like something he's calling Merit TV, which also just sounds like an anti-DEI thing, like, oh, we're gonna be back to merit. Here he is, and he's interrogating someone who allegedly is a sex criminal, which is like, okay, there's literally no, all right, sure, whatever you need to say for the cameras. He's asking him where he's from, and then this guy is like, wait, are you Dr. Phil?
Say that.
Say the what? You have a person that name.
Sorry.
Say the sound.
Yes.
Where you from?
Where I was born or where I'm from?
Where you born?
Thailand.
You been deported before from the United States?
No.
Never been deported.
So that's Tom Homan saying, have you ever been deported? Which is amazing that they're also blurring these fucking coward-ass ICE agents' faces and not this poor gentleman's face.
I've been in the system before.
He says, I've been in the system before.
What have you been charged with
Charged where?
before?
I'm not gonna say nothing. I'm gonna talk to my lawyer.
He says, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to talk to my lawyer, which I'm like, thank God he shut up. They've got cameras on him.
Yeah.
They're filming him. This is so silly.
So exploitative.
Yeah. Are you a citizen?
My mom's a citizen.
Your mother's a citizen?
Yes.
So my mom's a citizen. Okay. And they're like, where's she at? Watch what's coming next. No.
But you're not?
Nope.
But you've never been deported before?
We got Dr. Phil. We got Dr. Phil.
Yeah? How do you know me?
You Dr. Phil?
Oh
You look
my
like
God.
Dr. Phil. How do you know me?
I think
This
that
is
would
like,
feel worse than
Like,
getting deported. Is getting deported by Dr. Phil. Jesus Christ.
just so awful. Like why? Do you know how much money Dr. Phil has? Like, he could be perfectly fine. Did he lose his home in the Palisades? Why is he even here? Like, what's going on? Is he
We
had
need
to
to
eat
put him
that?
out to pasture.
Seriously
It's
though, like, what
crazy.
the fuck is this? And why is there a television personality out with fucking ICE agents? Okay, let's keep going.
No, I seen Dr. Phil, on TV.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good story, bro.
What
Uh-huh.
the
Yeah. I
fuck
watched
is
Dr. Phil.
this?
Yeah. He's like, did you
His
buy any of
job
my
is to
merch?
interview people.
Did you like it? Did you
He's
enjoy
like,
the
what do you think
show?
about Bad Baby?
Did you know that I gave Cash Me Outside Girl her start? Do you know
And now
I
we
interviewed
caught you outside.
Exactly.
How do you know me?
No, I seen Dr. Phil, on TV.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is an example of sanctuary cities, right? We got an illegal alien convicted of sex crimes involving children. He's walking the streets of Chicago. Again,
And you're
the
making
downfall,
content out of it.
Straight up making content out of it. That's exactly what they're doing. So he says there's a sex criminal who's been walking around the streets of Chicago. Obviously, there's nothing to prove that, as opposed to the sex criminals who are, in the White House right now and are in the cabinet. Honestly, watching all that, Pallavi, I think I'm pro crime. Like, obviously, whatever. If he did something awful, that's bad. But like,
I think we should start.
I'm
I
just
think we should
feeling
start rating
pro-crime.
the
Like, if
command centers.
yeah, no, for sure. Well, that's for sure. I mean, like the amount of ridiculous, like people for like a country that's obsessed with like due process and how dare these Gen Sixers be let go and all of this. It's like, yeah, man, you are literally rounding people up on suspicion, not on evidence, on suspicion because
Not crimes.
under the new executive order, anyone can be accused of being a criminal. And not only that, this person doesn't have access to a lawyer. This person doesn't, have any kind of representation with them. And now you're
The
just
right
shoving
to
a camera in
plead
their
the
face.
fifth in front of Dr. Phil. Like what? Like if I didn't have my Miranda rights read to me before Dr. Phil appeared, I'd be so fucking pissed. I'd be so mad.
You'd be like, so you're going to make me like the Cash Me Outside star, right? Like this is going to lead to something, right? I get my own reality show, right? And it's like, no, you don't. We only like to exploit, U.S. citizens. That's our goal. We only like to
Underage U.S. citizens.
Yes, underage U.S. citizens like Honey Boo Boo and whatever 16-year-old that was. So it's just like this is so fucking wild. Now, let's turn to a different element of this because there's some little silver lining. Maybe there was a big spat over the weekend between the government of Colombia and the Trump administration. In response to the many deportation flights that have now been flown by the U.S. military, full of people who they've rounded up, again, on suspicion, and have put on these military planes, in a lot of the cases, have handcuffed them and have sent them back to their countries of origin, which honestly at this point, like they're now talking about sending Venezuelans to El Salvador. It doesn't really matter, actually. They're sort of all one in the same.
It's all Mexico to me.
It's all Mexico. And so there was a lot of back and forth. And I have to read a little bit of this Gustavo Petro, the president of Colombia's tweet. And it is long,
so good.
But it is in Spanish. And he basically says, Trump, a mí no me gusta mucho viajar. I don't like to go to the United States. I don't like to travel to the United States because it's a little boring. But I confess there are things worth merit. I like to go to the Black neighborhoods in DC. There I see the struggle between the capital of the United States, between Black and Latinos with their barricades. She's talking about sort of turf wars, which seems silly to me because I think they should come together. Basically, Gustavo's like straight up on one. He's like drunk, even though he says he doesn't drink whiskey, and he's kind of like waxing real poetic. I like that. I confess I like Walt Whitman, Paul Simon, Noam Chomsky, and Miller. I don't know which Miller we're talking
Probably
about.
Arthur Miller,
I'm assuming. This is the best part. I confess that Sacco and Vanzetti, who have my blood. Again, Sacco and Vanzetti were Italian anarchists who were lynched in New York for a murder that they didn't commit. It was very politicizing for a lot of anarchists out there. There were a lot of Italian anarchists back in the day. They grew the labor movement in this country on and on and on, who have my blood. So it's assumed, Gustavo Petro might have a little Italian in him. In the history of the United States are memorable, and I follow them. They killed them for their idea. Líderes obreros, for being working leaders with the electric chair. The fascists, did I say lynch? I thought they hung them. The fascists that are there inside the United States, like in my country. Now he keeps going on and on and on and on, and includes he basically calls the he calls the United States a country of white enslavers, and I'm like, not wrong.
No, he's
And then
like, he cooks in this and he gets more inspirational as it goes on,
he
honestly.
says, Colombia, ahora deja mirar al norte. We're going to stop looking to the north. We're going to look to the world because our blood is the blood of the Califato de Cordoba, I guess the fountain of Cordoba, the civilization en ese entonces, where the Roman Latinos of the Mediterranean, the civilization of which founded our republic, the democracy of Athens, our blood is in those resistentes negros convertidos en esclavos, those black people who were converted into slaves by you in Colombia, which is the first free territory in all of the Americas before Washington, before America. Allí me cobillo. I don't know what cobillo means. En sus cantos africanos, I feel like I steep myself in the African chants, my land is something, some fucking, I don't know. I don't know what ofrebrerio is. Admittedly, I should have completely
That was
translated.
impressive, though.
The point is the guy goes on and on and on, and he's just like, again, he's like on when he's like, one day maybe over whiskey we'll talk about all these things and more, but for now, F you, I'm not going to accept these deported Colombians because you're treating them like criminals effectively, right? And then within like 12 hours he was like, okay, because a few things happened. Petro blocked the planes from landing. He accused the U.S. of treating Colombian migrants like criminals, prompting Trump to order steep tariffs on all Colombian imports, a travel ban for Colombian citizens, the revoking of visas for Colombian officials in the U.S., and suspending visa processing for both immigrant and non-immigrant visas. Yeesh. And this is something I learned thanks to the New York Times, still doing some good reporting, was talking about how Colombia appeared safely removed from Mr. Trump's focus since 2018. $7.6 billion in foreign investment had been committed to more than 300 projects in Colombia connected to nearshoring, according to ProColombia, a government trade bureau. In other words, Colombia is seen as an alternative to the anti-China backlash, manufacturing backlash, right? And all this protectionism, all this shit. So Colombia was actually, American companies made up 40% of all foreign investment, the largest single source. So my guess is some of the business magnates in Colombia were like, look, no puedes hacer esto. You gotta, I need a vacation in the US. I need my visa. And 40% of like our industry comes from American companies investing in manufacturing here. So please
At
stop.
least that's a president that like listens to feedback about the economy and about the interests of his people, whereas like, what the fuck is Trump doing? Like,
yes. No, exactly. There's like, but also it's sort of a lesson in like, Colombia's Colombia. Like, they're not going to be able to step to the United States because they rely on the United States, which is why China pilled to shit, man, because like China is the only one that can actually step to the United States, as awful as they are. But you're like, this kind of, Trump's team is like, oh, we totally showed Colombia. And you're like, oh, really? Like what? Like how big is their economy versus ours? How big is their military versus ours? There was threats. Gustavo Petro was saying we're gonna, install 25% tariffs on your coffee. Everyone was freaking out about coffee for a second, but it's like, yeah, man, this is the global South. You can only strong arm them so far unless they work together. And
that's what I was thinking, is that like these countries are going to be so soured on us that they might form their own like coalition to try to like strong arm us out of our position right now.
They already have. They already have. I mean, that's the thing about like these bilateral trade agreements and multilateral trade agreements and groups like BRICS countries, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Like that's where that comes from. It's all these countries who are looking for an alternative and circumventing the US. And so it's like, yeah, you look strong now, but ultimately you're nailing the nails in the American economy's coffin and our sort of supremacy in the world. And I think this, China AI shit just proved that also, to add to it.
This is not how we do diplomacy, Mr. President.
It's not how we do diplomacy. Here's the other thing. Mexico has also accepted 4 flights of deported Mexican immigrants from the U.S. to that country, and in a turnaround, in different tack, not a different tack, but when you actually when there's actual leadership, the Mexican government is saying that they are creating a repatriation program called Mexico Embraces You to welcome its fellow citizens with open arms as deportations continue. And here is the president, Claudia Sheinbaum, and I don't know if I'll translate as it goes.
Pero que se oiga bien y que se oiga fuerte. Las y los mexicanos allá sostienen la economía de los Estados Unidos en el campo, en los servicios.
She's saying, and so if you listen up and listen good, Mexicans in the United States sustain the U.S. economy from the fields to service industry.
En todos lados.
In all places.
Estados Unidos no sería lo que es si no fuera por un pueblo trabajador.
The United States wouldn't be where it is if it weren't for the working people.
Que se vaya a ayudar.
Who go there to help.
Van a recibir siempre nuestro apoyo, nuestra solidaridad, y si regresan a México, regresan con nuestros brazos abiertos para darles todo lo que se merecen, porque son generosos, solidarios.
And if they come back from, to Mexico, they're going to be received with open arms because we are, we work in solidarity and we're generous.
Como es el pueblo mixteco y todos los pueblos de nuestro país.
The Mixteco, sort of like referring to, Mexican culture, as well as all of the people of our country, which is like kind of hat tip to like the indigenous people of Mexico and the many, different groups there. So, that's a little bit of leadership.
Yeah, say like we want to go to Mexico. Would we be welcomed with open arms?
Yes. Can we get can we hide out on the deportation flights? Let's go.
Let's go.
If there's any MAGA watching, they're like, yeah, get out of here.
I know people are like, go back to where you came from. And I'm like, might not be too bad. It might not. This is the only generation, like when my parents came to the US in the 80s, like their generation, me and my cousin's generation, everybody was like trying to get to the US, trying to get a job here, trying to get visas. I talked to my cousin's kids and they're like about to go to college. And I'm like, where do you want to go? And they're like, oh, I definitely don't want to go to the US. We're going to get shot. I don't want to go there. It's chaotic. I'll go to like Europe or Singapore, or like just other random places because we're cooked, you guys. So
right.
We kind of do want to go back to where we came from.
Yeah, it's not looking too bad. I mean, I'm very much toggling between like following the news today and also like maybe we should go to Italy. How much is it to buy a home there? Again, just a sad little American expat.
Food.
The fresh food, man. I mean, they've got their own fascists, so that's a whole fun thing.
Yeah, there's going to be fascists everywhere, but it's like, can I get mangoes like I can get in India? I don't think so, man.
Exactly. Their fascists come with better fruit.
Oof.
Oh boy. Pallavi Gunalan, thank you for joining me for this insane day where we need to all be not be weak bitches. And how can people find you and follow you?
I'm at Pallavi Gunalan, PALLAVIGUNALAN. I'm going to be doing a lot of stand-up. I'm going to the Pacific Northwest at the end of February. Yeah. Might go back to San Francisco in March. Might go to Texas in April. So please follow me. Go to my website. Go to my Instagram. I'm around.
She's around. Thank you so much for joining me. Come back real soon. And take good care. And speaking of live stand-up, I'm going to be back at the Ice House with an all-new lineup in Pasadena, February 19th. That's a Wednesday. Tickets are already on sale. They're selling. There should be a description or a link in the description below. Maybe there's not, if we can throw one in there. New World Disorder is what I'm calling it. A monthly little hang. We're going to figure out what to do with that space. I'm like, and then afterwards, we'll just take the streets. It'll be great. Look out, Pasadena. But no, thank you for everyone who came out, and I hope you can join me again. And with that, let me bring in, I'm trying to find the proper bio. I'm trying to find it. I don't think, I scroll down page. He's the co-host of the podcast Citations Needed, and you can follow his work at The Column. Please welcome Adam Johnson.
Hi, how are you?
Down. Terrible. How are you?
Yeah, I suppose I'm also terrible. But we can get into why that is, I guess.
We can get into why that is. I mean, one thing that's really interesting, Adam, as all of this federal funding freeze mania, like hysteria, righteous hysteria is playing out, is that the Senate is also voting on whether to sanction ICC officials over their ruling on arrest warrants for Bibi Netanyahu and company. And that seems to be a priority for our country, is to protect Bibi Netanyahu from, I don't know, international law.
Yeah, well, it's important that one have their priorities straight. They have been spending a lot of capital. They spend a lot of capital on doing Israel-related either funding or protecting them from the ICC, or going after nonprofits during the interim period from after when Trump won the election to him taking office. That was what they spent a lot of their capital on. It's what the White House spent a lot of their capital on. And when they talk about, bipartisan agreement with Trump or working with Trump or any of these kind of bromides that everyone from Hakeem Jeffries to Joe Scarborough sort of throws out, they're usually very vague, but oftentimes what they mean is this. Now, not all Democrats support these sanctions on the ICC, but many do. The exact numbers, I think, are to be determined.
Yeah.
But because again, in 2002, there was what Human Rights Watch called the Hague Invasion Act, which was passed with a lot of bipartisan support, namely from Joe Biden, or it's worth noting at the time, Senator Joe Biden, to effectively commit U.S. military to invade the Hague in the event that any American, this was later extended to Israeli, was subject to international, legal sanction or imprisonment. Now,
to invade it? To invade the Hague?
It's 2002. That you look it up. It's called colloquially the Hague Invasion Act. It's obviously not what the bill itself was called, but that is what Human Rights Watch deemed it. Because it not only allows the president to do it, it commits the U.S. to do it in the event that any American is, because this was right before they were about to invade Iraq. So I think the assumption was that there would be a lot of war crimes.
Let's cover our asses.
So this has been going on for a while, but sorry, go ahead.
It passed 54 to 45. They advanced the bill to sanction ICC officials. Falls short of the 60 vote threshold. John Fetterman joined Republicans, but of course he did. I mean, Zionism and the Israeli lobby really gave him a new identity after he was done shedding the whatever, populist progressive identity.
Well, the working masses cry out for more dead kids in Gaza. Everyone knows this is a true working class issue. Several people keep referring to John Fetterman as a working class candidate, but he's admittedly, although he doesn't really talk about it much, he's from an upper middle class family, and he went to Harvard grad school. His shtick with the hoodie is mostly a costume. But we can talk about him later.
I mean, it's the same thing with the oligarchs, right? It's this chick with before his glow up, although now he's like trying to pull off streetwear when Zuckerberg would just wear like a t-shirt and jeans. And you're just like, oh, he doesn't seem like he's worth $1 billion or more. But yeah,
Baruch de Spinoza had a really good line back in the 17th century. He said, the affectation of negligence is the mark of a small mind. And speaking of the Hague, and I think about that a lot when these rich guys or these powerful senators dress like schlubs. Is sort of it's the affectation of negligence. It takes a lot of work to look like you don't care like that. It is not an actual marker of working classness. Working class people don't have that level of disrespect for the people around them.
If a working class person actually got into to be a senator, they would respect the fuck out of that.
They're not wearing shorts in 20-degree weather. The only reason you do that is to posture. I'm sorry, that's obviously absurd.
100%. Or you're from Northern California. That's super a California thing to do. Is like we all knew growing up over here that like there was like the one kid that just would wear shorts all year round, and you're like, you realize it's freezing, and they're like, yeah, but it's not that. Like you're not going to get frostbite like you will in the rest of the country.
Yeah.
But I did want to. It's every time I started the show talking about this federal funding freeze, and basically what's wild is really the response from Democrats, which feels like they've been completely caught off guard. Meanwhile, they talked about Project 2025 and the gutting of federal workforces or these kinds of programs all election cycle. It's all they could cover. And so the fact that there is no plan is truly disturbing. And I don't know, I guess I wanted you to weigh in on this. I mean, it is related to Gaza. Maybe we can just pull it to Gaza. Because one of the things I was going to bitch about, but I was like, let's save this for Adam because he's been actually talking about this for a very, very long time, is the ways in which that now some I don't even know what they're called, progressive, some people online and elsewhere are like, see, Trump's going to make Gaza worse. This week, Trump was heard saying that he wants to clean out all of Gaza, that he wants Egypt to take a bunch of people, like 1.5 million people. And you literally used the words clean out, effectively ethnic cleansing. And this has been used to sort of rub in the faces of those who couldn't bring themselves to vote for someone who was not breaking with the policies of Joe Biden.
This line is born from profound ignorance and cynicism for one simple reason, which is we have no idea what Trump's policy with respect to Gaza is going to be in either direction. He's only been in office for 8 days. Trump, by all accounts, did implement or enforce through threat and treat, the substance of which, the details of which we don't know, a ceasefire that has been Arab officials, Qatari officials, Egyptian officials have all confirmed this, that the reason why there is presently a ceasefire and has been for about 9 days in Gaza is because of Trump.
Right.
Now, that does not, and then the second that happened, you had people on the other side kind of spiking the football and saying, look, Trump was better on Gaza. And I think the reality is that we have no idea. And the policy of ethnic cleansing that Trump seemingly is promoting, which I think he is, at least rhetorically, obviously without an end to the ceasefire, that's not really possible, is a bipartisan policy. It was the policy of the Biden administration, which armed and funded ethnic cleansing. And I think when people are trying to dunk on that, it's born from a profound ignorance, but also ignorance, an assumed ignorance of the people watching or listening, who think that this was not already U.S. policy, which it was. It's called the General's Plan. It's been going on for several months in northern Gaza. Haaretz magazine had an editorial saying it's ethnic cleansing. Human Rights Watch says it's ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing has already happened in Gaza under Biden's watch explicitly over the last 6 months while the U.S. continued to arm and fund it. And to say, well, you got yours. You had under Biden, we have ethnic cleansing where you're forced into tent cities on the border of Egypt in a camp the size of LAX airport, versus under Trump's nominal or sort of rhetorical plan, you get ethnic cleansing where you're forced into the Sinai. These aren't morally that meaningfully different. Internally displacing people with ethnic cleansing is obviously, from the perspective of those being ethnically cleansed, is not meaningfully different than ethnically cleansing them to other countries.
Sure.
Now, this is a plan that has been on so reportedly Blinken and Biden did push Egypt to quote unquote accept refugees early on. So this is a plan that's also been endorsed by Biden, depending on what reporting you believe in.
They wanted like a third party, some Arab nation or conglomerate of such trained by the U.S. to basically run Gaza instead.
Well, no, I meant to actually export
export people
from Gaza.
Yeah.
Now that did not gain much traction. Nominally, they opposed it, but supposedly some reporting said they supported it. They certainly wouldn't have opposed it, but historically, Egypt and Jordan and others have said, no way, I'm not going to be a party to this. It would pretty much erode any moral credibility they have. Also, Egypt doesn't want Muslim Brotherhood connected groups in their country for a variety of reasons.
Right.
But people banking on this, look at this ethnic cleansing statement Trump made to kind of get some smug dunk on, I guess they call them now like Dearborn voters is their kind of go-to for these.
Oh boy.
For these kind of, it is profoundly ignorant, but also profoundly premature. Now, that could be the case. That could end up being the case that Trump does whatever their rhetoric says, Gaza plus or Gaza worse. Gaza plus, genocide or genocide plus rather, genocide 10% worse. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. Frankly, the when you're discussing variations of different types of genocide, the lesser of two evils argument begins to kind of break down into a morality singularity where the math doesn't really make sense. Well, and ultimately, I always viewed it during the election as kind of a non sequitur. Now, if somebody wanted to make the argument that Harris is better for X, Y, and Z reason, for Medicaid, for all the things we're seeing now, for WIC, for the liberal state, for the regulatory state, for the NLRB, for the FTC, you want to make that argument. I've always thought that was a perfectly reasonable argument to make, totally 100% accurate. But to try to make the argument that Harris or Biden, the Biden-Harris regime would have been better for Gaza is to the point where you're saying, well, the genocide is going to be slightly less genocidal, strikes me as morally unserious position to take, and not one that I think most people really, and again, to the extent to which it's borne out, rhetoric, notwithstanding, it's been the opposite. So
let me just jump in, because I think we're maintaining this for the entire election cycle. And I watched some of the things, listened to the things you were saying, and it was hard because in terms of cynicism, I feel like you've been very cynical, but perhaps right on a lot of this. And I do think that, because you were basically saying, look, there's no real policy difference. In fact, she admitted, Kamala Harris, that there wasn't going to be a policy difference between her and Biden on the genocide on Gaza. The only difference between the policy difference, it seems, between Biden and Trump thus far has been the allowance of 2,000-pound bombs, which you could argue you can do just as much damage.
That was totally superficial, though, because when they withheld the 2,000-pound bombs last spring, rather, they explicitly said, and you can go look it up in the New York Times, that Israel had more than enough for years. It was the definition of a superficial token gesture. So again, when liberals smugly point that out, it's like that displays just profound ignorance, either on the part of the speaker or the part of those who are listening, who think that that's meaningful. And I'm telling you, you cannot find a single Palestinian, or at least not more than you can fit into a single room, who would argue that that is a meaningful difference. It's not.
Well, and let me just break it down too, because I do think that one of the things in terms of the liberal washing of this is just that. It's that this was the same policy, but washed in a tragic, we think this is awful. It's, we believe in the human rights of Palestinians and the self-determination. I believe Kamala Harris even managed to say. Everyone thought that was, something different, and it wasn't actually. And look, I'm also here to say
that was almost verbatim. That was almost verbatim rhetoric used by Rex Tillerson, Trump's Secretary of State in 2017. He used the exact same language, because it's pro forma State Department language.
Now, where I've disagreed with you, Adam, is that I do think we know. I think we know Trump's going to be worse. So I'll just say that, even though I know you disagree. I also think that Kamala Harris.
How? What does that mean?
I do think that in terms
of
Gaza,
or just in general.
In Palestine.
How?
On the annexation of the West Bank.
It's already been annexed. It's been annexed since 1967. It's de jure versus de facto.
I'm saying that I disagree. I think that for me on Palestine, there is far more, and you saw this in real time, when there was far more pressure and pushback when Biden and Kamala Harris were running. And now that, Trump is in office, it is incredibly demobilizing. And I think our window to actually change shit is diminished on this issue particularly. I just think that with most all issues in this duopoly that we live in, but particularly on Palestine. So I'm saying I disagree with you, but I hear you. But I also think that Kamala Harris wasn't
but the pressure
committed, committed Zionist in the way that Biden is a committed Zionist. Biden is a committed Zionist. He's ideologically there. Trump is not an ideological Zionist, but he is an ideological sociopath.
He's an ideological racist.
Well, right, exactly. He's an ideological racist, and it allowed ethnic cleansing is all hunky dory. Whereas Biden bought the Zionist line, hook, line, and sinker. We have to do ethnic cleansing to save us from this other ethnic cleansing that's not happening. So that I'll say, but I just want to go to the YouGov polls, and I know you've seen this and talked about it. But
I
would
say one thing to that. Can I say one thing to that? Sorry, real quick. If Harris was going to do something different than Biden, which she very explicitly said she was not, it has now been over 3 months since the election. Why has she not said what that would have been? If we're going to talk about counterfactuals, why is no one from her circle? She never said
she was going to do anything different. She never said.
Well, I'm saying that if the assumption was that she somehow secretly was going to be better on Gaza, but could not reveal it because she was vice president, or the Israel lobby, these other kind of excuses. It's now been 3 months. She has nothing to lose. I don't know why no one from her camp has leaked anything to that effect.
Right.
No, it's pure.
I think she's a coward. I think it's because she's a coward.
So why would I believe that it would be any different? I mean, again, I
do think that she's different from both Biden. She's not an ideological Zionist, and she's not and she's not a racist.
How do I know?
In the ways that
she was at every APAC conference her entire political career. I mean, I don't know.
No, because APAC that's like a fucking pageant that you have to show up at. We all know that.
A lot of people don't do the APAC conference. A lot of candidates don't do the APAC
I understand, but you know what I'm saying?
In other words, I don't know what it would look like.
My basic argument, I'm trying to give you credit, Adam, for being correct.
Sorry, I'm being hostile. Go ahead.
But I am
Very
trying to
passionate about this
say,
topic.
no, I understand. And that's why I'm like, I want to have you on, because I know you've been passionate about it. But I also feel as though the window for us to pressure, I think you don't disagree with me on that, under a Harris administration, and this is all fucking water under the bridge at this point. The reason I wanted to, for the libs, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because it really, the election really did hinge on it. And it was something that we've all pointed out. But again, the YouGov poll with the Institute for Middle East Understanding Policy Project, by more than a 3-to-1 margin, Biden 2020 voters who did not vote for Harris said they would have been more likely to vote for Harris if she, quote, pledged to break from Biden's foreign policy towards Gaza by promising to withhold additional weapons to Israel, rather than less likely. 36% more likely, 10% less likely, made no difference, 54%. Okay. But a poll released, let's see, 29% of voters nationally who voted for Biden in 2020 cast a ballot for someone besides Kamala Harris in 2024, said ending the violence in Gaza was a top issue, with economy a close second. So basically the people who voted for somebody else. And then even the people who did vote for Harris in swing states, specifically by a 7-to-1 margin, said they would have been more enthusiastic in their support to Harris if she had pledged to break from Biden's policy to withhold weapons to Israel. 35% said they would have been more enthusiastic. Now, again, 59% were like, that doesn't make a difference. But those 35% could be people who are like your surrogates, your door knockers, the people who are like, you know, going to bat for you. So all to say, Gaza was an issue. And I totally agree. Like, whether or not she would have made good on it, even Trump was using Gaza as a wedge from him against Biden.
Yeah.
He said, and I quote again, because it haunts me in the middle of the night, Biden's terrible on Israel. He hates Israel, pause, but I guess he hates Palestinians more. And it was so disgustingly perfect, because even he could see the bloodshed. So I guess, like, yes, we don't have to say, like, you know, whatever. Like, I think, you know, I appreciate your passion, and I think you're correct in a lot of ways. And
I mean, ultimately, it was a game of chicken, and unfortunately, that was just the position the White House put activists and Gaza, you know, voters in. As I'm sure we all agree on that, in terms of like who actually it's incumbent upon, who has the power. You know, and the awkward fact is that Trump did compel a ceasefire in Gaza for now, and I stress for now, because it's very, very precarious. It's very tenuous. Israel's actually just bombed Rafah, or killed people in Rafah, but it's still limited or whatever. And people are going back to their homes. So from the perspective of people in Gaza, it appears to be a meaningful cessation of hostilities. And he did that with a combination, from all reporting, of implicit threats, which Biden refused to do, but also treats. He threw the right wing in Israel some treats in terms of, you know, ending sanctions on settlers, which again is like a dozen people. It's not very meaningful. And obviously, I think anyone in Gaza would have taken that bargain had Biden done it in a heartbeat. So, because again, we're talking dozens and hundreds of people dying every day for over 470 days. So, using that, you know, all we can analyze is what we can observe. We can't read people's minds. No. And so, as far as it goes, for now, Trump is better than Biden on Gaza. That could change any second. Because Trump is obviously capricious. He obviously got $215 million from Sheldon Adelson's widow, very staunchly right-wing pro-Israel donor. He obviously took a lot of money from rich far-right Zionist donors. And the only thing I would even consider being the X factor here, which is maybe what some of these kind of protest voters were thinking, is that Trump is also heavily motivated by spiting Democrats and spiting his predecessor. He did this with Obama. He would literally do the opposite of what Obama did just to fucking spite him, because he's incredibly petty and all about like 1980s Wall Street, like alpha dog self-help book stuff, like owning your opponent. So to the extent to which what motivated him to actually compel a ceasefire, I think the motivation is pretty clear, because he wanted to be the guy that did the thing that Biden couldn't do. And I don't really give a shit what his reasons are, as long as it happens. And so it's happening now. Again, could change overnight. Obviously, Trump changes his mind. You know, he went from making nuclear, you know, threatening to nuke North Korea to being buddy with Kim Jong-un. So like he changes all the time. So we don't know what to expect over the next few months.
I mean, I do think this is a little like, I disagree. I definitely think, like, obviously Marcos Granger's pointing out, Huckabee being the ambassador to Israel, who like doesn't even think Palestinians exist. Elise Stefanik, like all this, the kinds of people that he's putting in there. It's gonna be worse. But I hear you on saying that, like,
maybe it will, maybe it won't. I mean,
here's my question though.
How do you get worse than what Biden did to Gaza? It's really hard. And I'm not saying it's not possible, but it would take a lot to be worse than what Biden did to Gaza.
Sure. I mean, it's one thing to say Palestinians don't exist, but Biden still acted as if they didn't anyway. So
right. What difference
the
does it make? He also
similar.
he spent weeks denying the death count, doing genocide denial. He spent weeks talking about 40 beheaded babies. He spent weeks doing all this kind of racist incitement to genocide stuff. So like, I'm not saying Trump can be worse than Biden on Gaza, or some counterfactual with Harris, which again, we sort of unknowable. I'm saying that it hasn't happened yet, but it could. Sure. And anyone spiking the football in either direction is being extremely premature. Because we simply don't know, and rather than trying to score points and settle Twitter scores and doing this, my friend and I make fun of it. It's the warned y'all post on Twitter. It's like, I told you, blah. It's like, how is this useful? How is this valuable? How does this help anything?
But I think that even the people who they're trying to dunk on actually knew that Trump would be the same, if not worse. The difference is rallying behind a candidate who is funding genocide and the maiming and murdering of children, and is like intolerable. And so which side of history would you rather fucking be on? I mean, I think it's pretty clear. And again, I agree with you on making the case against Trump for a million other reasons. This one was obviously we know it wasn't a strong one. And I think beyond this, I think Gaza, in the way that the Iraq War undid the media and in large part the Democratic Party, although, they never, they weren't made to suffer for it. I think Gaza's undone the media and the Democratic Party. I think, once again, foreign policy and democratic militarism, it has undermined their entire bullshit posturing about human rights and all of that.
I mean, the sort of liberal rules-based order claptrap was always pretty thin, and now it's doesn't exist. I mean, no one takes this stuff seriously. I think that I never made the argument Trump would be better on Gaza, current ceasefire notwithstanding, because the idea of better on Gaza when he has a history from 2017 to 2021 of killing tens of thousands of Yemeni, giving Saudi Arabia, open season on Yemen, on his full-blown destruction of Mosul, his destruction of, you name it. I mean, the guy obviously has no issues with killing tens of thousands of Arabs. And had he been president on October 7th, the differences would have been non-existent. I mean, he wouldn't have done all the bleeding heart claptrap. I think there would have been probably a more effective Democratic opposition rather than bipartisan consensus. But no doubt in my mind, he would have done the same thing, more or less.
And my question is about, though, like, what it's meant for the Democratic Party. Where do you think? I feel like it has lost them. I mean, there's a crisis in legitimacy and leadership right now, but it's like, I do think this has been their undoing.
I would say it's exposed. It exposes the contradictions in so-called liberal rules-based order in a way that is beyond negotiable. And this is why, again, there's been elements of the so-called deep state that have never really been too hot on this. The Pentagon has kind of been whatever. The CIA, vis-a-vis its leaks at its surrogate at the Washington Post, David Ignatius, has been basically try to take the opportunity in November of 2023 during the first 2-week pause, the only other pause, to say, all right, it's time to wrap it up. Israel, you sort of made your point. You killed at that point, 3,000 Palestinian children, 4,000 Palestinian children. It's time to move on. So I do think that people understand that the long-term credibility of the U.S. imperial project, such as it is, has been went from maybe 8% credibility to 0.001% credibility. And that all the sort of goodwill that was built up over, Ukraine or these other kind of obviously far more legitimate military interventions than backing a genocide of a caged people has completely eroded this. And so then that raises the opportunity of, well, what replaces it? What do we what emerges in its order And this is something that I know activists and academics and others within this sort of left-wing foreign policy space are working on, because the alternative of just pure campism, where it's like, well, I guess, China's the good guy now. Not that I think they're the bad guy necessarily in the sense, but I think that pure campism doesn't really get you very far either, because then that has its own contradictions and its own problems. That something needs to emerge that begins to look like genuine international solidarity that is not based on this kind of meddling empire who crowns itself the arbiter of human rights and the arbiter of democracy. These just completely insufferable hypocrites like Samantha Power,
just
talking
an
about
actual anti-war Democrat, like an actual anti-war candidate who isn't obviously like, I mean, remember how that was Tulsi? We're going to end forever wars, except unless they're Muslim.
Well, yeah, she was always an anti-Muslim racist. So that was.
Yeah. But like an actual anti-war candidate who can problematize all this and talk about, everything from, military bases to military funding to lack of care of the veterans and all that. And it's like, when will Democrats fucking get like break with this is my big thing. And I think the media, again, with the lack of credibility, like they're in a crisis. CNN and MSNBC, they're in this crisis. And it's like, well, it didn't fucking help that you barely allowed for Palestinian voices to speak during this ongoing genocide.
Yes, as I am documenting for the nation, the bias is pretty clear cut. It's pretty empirically obvious, and I think that credibility. And this is what really gave oomph to the TikTok ban in April of 2024, which not coincidentally was the peak of the campus protests. It had always been there. It was kind of like a steady state national security China thing, but really what gave it bipartisanship and really turned around people like Chris Murphy and others was this idea that TikTok, because it wasn't giving the kind of Jake Tapper, human shields, racist line on everything, what needed to sort of be snuffed out, or what they really wanted to do was intimidate TikTok to sort of toe the line and to sort of deplatform. And they did to some extent deplatform Palestinian content. And obviously the juxtaposition between what people saw on social media versus what they were seeing in corporate media, to the extent that people under the age of 35 even watch it or read it, was profound. And it contributed to this crisis of credibility. And that,
I mean, it's terrifying because it feels like it feels like it couldn't have come at a worse time. I mean, their failures came at the worst time because now you have obviously a second Trump administration. And, again, back to the original point is you keep on saying that we have to protect our democracy. And yet, you're slandering college protesters. You are calling them anti-Semitic. And you're warning us that Trump is actually the biggest threat. And we just have to focus on this. And now that it's happened, there's no fight left. Now there's a lot of mainstream news outlets who are like obviously continuing to have their, little Trump surrogates on, or they're saying like Mika and Joe Scarborough, we're going to go meet with Trump, or we can meet him in the middle. And you even have obviously politicians. I think today is an interesting day, Adam, because
all the normies were getting mad. The normies are like, what the fuck are the Democrats doing? Like loyal, like social media, like we're like, all right, what's the plan? And so it's like there was a bit of a breaking point where it's like Medicaid. I mean, again, what Trump is obviously doing is he's the velociraptor testing the fence. He's seeing what he can get away with. He's pushing the limits, which again is so foreign to like Democrats that they're like, wait, you can do that? Because what's the downside? If he tries to do some dictatorial power grab and the court overrules it, he just goes, oops, okay, moving on. Like there's not really any downside to just trying it, because of the 1 in 10 chance that it's sustained by the courts or by Congress, he now has a new dictatorial power. And so it's obviously a strategy of discombobulation. It's meant to kind of throw off opposition to his cabinet picks, because now they have to put out all these other fires. And it's typical. Again, this is full blown Trump. This is not what was, this is Trump on steroids compared to the first term, because he's done it before. He's got the full blown backing of the Republican Party. There's no real resistance. There isn't the kind of lawfare thing, leaks coming out to the Washington Post and New York Times to undermine him with respect to Russiagate. So he's got nothing really holding him back. The New York Times basically just said, let's just roll with it. And for their editorial board, whether it was immigration or these, whatever minority.
Well, and he's got the tech oligarchy is sort of definitely more
tech
cohesive.
Oligarchy. Yeah, that doesn't help, since again the major platforms, Facebook, Twitter, are all run by allies of his now. And so, he's seeing how far he can go, and Democratic resistance, like you said, I think was caught off guard, because they didn't expect it. I think they thought it would be similar to last time. But B, they thought they were just going to do the we're going to work with them. And of course you can't work with Trump MAGA because they're not in good faith. You can't have anything in good faith with these people. Their goal is to just do the extremist Heritage Foundation Project 2025. And they're doing it list by list. And this is a kind of Grover Norquist wet dream. It's an attack on the liberal state. It's an attack on unions. It's an attack on labor. It's an attack on minorities. It's an attack on gay and trans people. And they're kind of just seeing what they can get away with. And hopefully the liberal, I think today was a wake-up call. I'm actually going to be I'm going to do something I don't usually do, which is to say, I think the Democrats will respond to this. I hope, and I believe, and I'm seeing elements of it emerging where they're like, okay, this is grandma's Social Security and Medicaid payment. This is grants to university. This is too far. The courts will step in. I believe the courts will overturn a lot of it. Call me a naive liberal, but I believe that the basic systems of checks and balances will correct most of this. But I think what it will be used as a distraction and leverage to jam through and run and do a quick confirmation process for many of these extremists.
Sure. There's too many fires to point out.
So they're going to whether it's RFK, whether whoever it is. These.
I don't think Tulsi's getting through. That's something I want.
Well, she's extreme in the way they don't like. she's extreme in the fact that she goes on Russia Today versus the extreme of I want to starve grandma and your children. That one we can forgive. But being in bed with foreign states,
but they're fine with getting money from Russia, or maybe it was too much Assadist money. Anyway,
well, it's too much into that world. I mean, it's basically Alex Jones adjacent, and I think I'm
calling it sexism. I don't give a shit if she gets not confirmed. It's come on, every other nut
he does
job?
have 2 women, and he only casts based on looks. This has been confirmed. He very much
let her in, but she's got to dye that white part. It freaks me out. Adam Johnson, we love your passion. Citations Needed is an awesome podcast. Everyone needs to be listening to. And there's just going to be a lot more of this, man. This is a moment I think that's also really just I feel like in terms of the preemptiveness, the last, this whole, what is it, 3-4 months, we've been hearing nothing but I'm willing to work with Trump. Oh, Trump might be this, Trump might be that. And it's maybe the biggest question mark I might grant you could be on the Middle East. But all this other shit, he literally has the playbook for. It's right here. And now it's happening. The idea that you're going to work with him or you're going to find common ground. It's this motherfucker is not trying to cut the same areas of government you want to cut.
I think I think many people within Democratic elite institutions and media thought that Trump could be instrumentalized to attack mutual enemies, whether it's migrants, trans people, Gaza protesters, that there was a sense that they will meet him in the middle with these things. And frankly, a lot of the anti-woke backlash. I mean, the Atlantic magazine set, New York Times set has hated that shit for years. There's a reaction. There's an elite backlash to George Floyd, to Me Too. And they thought, well, we don't like his tactics and he goes too far and he's vulgar, but maybe Trump can put these fuckers back in their place. And then when he came out with this Heritage Foundation wish list going way further than all that, I think there was the realization that, we're not going to work with them. We're obviously just being used and run over because we're weak and we have, again, we have our own reactionary ends that we thought we could use them with. But now he's going after some sacred cows that have actively outraged. I mean, the phones are off the hook this week from your core constituents, from teachers unions, from postal workers unions to, academics, to grant making, to every single governor saying, where the fuck's my money? And I think everybody knows that this is a negotiation tactic. Again, Trump comes from the strong arm 80s coke fueled.
He's tweeting videos of himself.
Negotiation.
He's tweeting or photos of himself AI images that make him look like a mob boss with FAFO, which I didn't realize was the fuck around and find out abbreviation, which is so corny.
No, it's the new right wing. Well, anytime there's a picture of a dead toddler in Palestine, you get 10 people tweeting that because they're also cool and savvy.
Oh, yes.
The popular right wing, kind of heartless. It's institutionalized sociopathy that is completely personified in Musk and Trump, who
absolutely
are genuinely sociopathic.
they're testing what they can get away with, and it's like, again, we keep moving the goalposts. I mean, not the goalposts, the front lines. The front lines keep moving farther and farther into like our territory.
Well, this
so
is
that-
what heritage is. I mean, this is what
Mhm.
these guys do. This, you ever notice that every Supreme Court case is that comes up, it's never like Supreme Court debates whether or not we should give people free, give kids free school lunches. It's always like Supreme Court debates this settled right that was established in 1815. And you're like, wait, why are we fighting over this? Because it's so cheap for these oligarchs, the Koch brothers, the Scafee family, all these, they just throw their couch cushion money at these dead-eyed psychopathic right-wing think tanks to just constantly be attacking established rights. Because when you're doing that, A, you may get lucky and peel back, say, like, Dobbs. Or B, you're everyone's spending all their energy reasserting established rights, liberal established rights. They can do all the other evil shit they're planning on doing. So it's kind of a win-win. And what you see is this is paying fruit. That all this right-wing, sort of extremist agenda that Trump is pushing over the last 8-9 days has its legal antecedents and its like policy papers that have been stewing in Heritage Foundation and the Hudson Institute and the Manhattan Institute and Foundation for Defense of Democracy.
It's been there, and the framework is there. Yes.
And this is which the hope from this that can emerge from this is that we go back to a left liberal arrangement that sees the enemy not as this kind of anomalous Trump freak, installed by Russia, sort of aliens put him in the White House, but he is actually the Republican Party.
100%.
There's a far right attack on the liberal state that needs to be defended by both the left and liberals. And he is not separate from the Republicans, that there's some sort of nice Republican Party we have to keep. We got to keep David Frum around. I get he needs to sleep on the couch at MSNBC. Like that, there's not some Republican Party worth preserving, but Trump is the Republican Party distilled and personified in its raw cruelty.
1,000,000%. I'm just like, I can't even, and all the people, and I understand we are all inevitably on like the same team or whatever, but don't think we've forgotten how much you paved the way, or all these like, well, I'm a never, all the never Trump Republicans who I think everyone should hate, who paved the way for this, the Nicole Wallaces and all those motherfuckers.
There's a direct line between prioritizing never Trump Republicans and Trump winning a second term.
100%.
We can empirically show it with the election results.
Yes, and the first person who's like, we need to respect the results is, of course, Liz Cheney. And again, I'm not someone who flattens Republicans. I do think there is a difference between saying, okay, election results matter and election results don't matter. So yeah, that is a difference. However, they paved the way for this. If you're trying to go after different social programs for decades, again, Heritage Foundation plans, and then this guy comes in, actually just does it illegally as it might be.
Yeah,
that's what you wanted to do.
That's why you don't hear much from those corners anymore, because without the hook of the sprawling lawfare stuff, they kind of just agree with them, and so they're mostly just kind of shut up, and a lot of the or they kind of fade into the whatever's left over of the Never Trump media. But again, Never Trump was always a limited hangout. It was always a limited discussion.
Adam Johnson, he's on one. He's on fire. You're so great, and I love even the contentious moments. Thank you so much for being here. Everyone, check out Citations Needed, and then also you've got a column called The Column.
Yeah, so it's a Substack called The Column, and I write occasionally places, but I'll be taking off writing for a bit. So
okay,
I'm working on a book.
I think it was about time, probably. There's enough writing. You're going to just put it all in one place.
Yeah, it's just easier to put it in a book.
Thank you so much for coming on. Take very good care. Everybody check out, Bitchuation Room is on Substack too. No big deal. But initially I was very Substack, sort of scared, because it was really just seemed like a place for like contrarians to be a-holes and like a longer Twitter. But now I'm over there and I'm like, okay, I like all these people. These people are good. And especially in a time of Elon Musk owning Twitter and Meta doing what it's doing, Substack kind of crushing it. Don't hate it. I'm going to read some comments, but I did just want to, before we completely move on and end this show, which we need to end, which, by the way, if everyone misses me for a couple hours, I'm going to be on my new show on Zateo with Wajahat Ali called America Unhinged, following the first 100 days of the Trump administration. Obviously, we're going to be talking about a lot of the same similar things and more. And don't miss that. tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Maybe I'll save this for tomorrow because it's just too much. But the level of douchebaggery is just deafening. This is some POS on Newsmax on mass deportations, very, very excitedly eating a taco.
What are you gonna do? Will you come take it out of my ham? I'm gonna eat half this plate during the break. Maybe I'll call the ICE hotline. I don't know if I'll have enough time. But sure, all kidding aside, it was actually really good taco. These people broke the law. They broke the law to get here.
So there you have it, people. There's your moment of rage. So douchebag eating a taco saying, what if I call ICE? These are the people we've emboldened. And this is as Laverne Cox said, the permission structure we've allowed. We have allowed, what Adam Johnson was referring to as sort of like the anti-woke backlash to become a Trojan horse to basically undo our government. Because you got mad because someone said you shouldn't say spirit animal anymore. You decided to, that it would be okay to embolden Donald Trump. And by you, I mean the minority of American voters. I mean 49% of American voters. Anyway, talk to me when California secedes from the union. Let's read some comments. I love y'all. We need each other now more than ever. Jody Odell, I am here late. Can we start over? Yes. Welcome to the Bitchuation Room, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Thank you, Robert, for your super chat. Donald Trump is going to federalize red state National Guards. Ignore posse comitatus, send them to blue states, insert banded word here, protesters, and declare a national emergency this summer. Look, I don't doubt that. And this is my thing on, the lack of protests, is I think I think people have been caught flat-footed, and I also think there's real fear. We heard the way Trump wants to treat demonstrators. I don't think that should be a reason for us to stay at home, but it is true. It is true how terrifying it is. And ordering the military onto, peaceful demonstrators, that's going to happen. I mean, we have to prepare ourselves for something like that to happen, and we have to decide what we're going to do about it. Turtle Sauce says, tomorrow, are they waiting to grow a spine? Yes, it takes at least 24 hours for Democrats to grow a spine. Pelican Hill, just here to laugh at all the idiots who thought Trump ran as a populist. You and me both, Pelican. You and me both. I felt like, we should have just waited. I just feel like Joe, Mika, Jank, just wait, wait a little bit. Ooh, you're going to be proven wrong so soon. Just take a breather. Take a load off. Stop making the rounds. Don't go to all these right-wing talk shows. Stay at home, save the miles, save the fossil fuels, save the carbon. Don't worry, it's going to get bad. Linda Martinson, finally Tuesday, my new favorite day. A lot of favorite YouTube and or Patreon. A lot of my favorite person on YouTube and or Patreon. So happy to see you on Zateo as well. Oh, Linda, you're going to have such an ass full. Rage Rock for now says, how many tears will JD Vance or Elon shed if the birth rate tanks, and would they be brainy enough to realize they may be partly responsible? I mean, what's so scary to me about rescinding funding for, all these programs isn't just that it will quite literally lead to the death of people and children and mothers and disabled people and elderly, but also, if you actually cared about public safety, if you actually cared about, homelessness and the housing crisis, the fact that you're getting rid of like Section 8 housing or federal funding for any housing programs, it's like, what do you think is going to happen? Where are people going to go? How are people going to eat? What do you think contributes to insecurity and crime more than people who are desperate? Mental health crisis. Like, what do you think does that? You have to keep people indoors. You have to keep people in their homes. You have to give people food. You understand what I'm saying? But so in some sick way, it sort of fulfills their fantasy of even more fascism, because they will be able to say, well, look at all these, crime-ridden places of people who are shoplifting their meals because they were thrown off WIC or they were thrown off SNAP benefits and things like this. William McGregor, I know you call me William, but as I was a female at the moment of conception, can you please call me Betty as I leave the ladies' room? Yes, Betty, whatever you want. And that is in reference to the executive order about everyone being designated at conception, male or female. Samantha Wiley, his new press secretary wouldn't confirm how many deportees actually have criminal records. Yeah, they don't care. They don't know. Ahmed, what's up? Thanks for your super chat. DJ sees strategies to make people tune out by overwhelming us with his insane moves. My friends are all tuning out the news. How do we counter that? I mean, you're a comic, right? It's about making it funny and digestible. I think that's part of it. It's about realizing also that we can do something positive where we're at. So it's like we have to metabolize this in some way, as Mo Mitchell of Working Families Party says. You have to metabolize this rage and this like insane onslaught. And it's obviously going to be very clear when friends are disappearing or they go to the supermarket and, eggs are like $15 or whatever. Let's see. Dave, thank you so much for your super chat. It's time for us to do what we've been doing, and that time is every day. Who said that? Big O Lameo, thank you for your nice super chat. Great show as always. Thank you for the spot you did on Bad Hasbara holiday special, but you and your husband owe me the coffee that I spit out laughing during that segment. You're welcome. Our coffee machine's kind of broken. I'm very sad. I had to do a pour over and I'm not good at them. And with that, guys, oh my God, this show is so long, but it's good. It's good and it's great. And this is the fart song to thank all the new members and all the patrons at $10 or more. Thank you to Pascal Fife for becoming a new member, to Pranav Ramakanthan, to Alorful Use for giving out 5 memberships over on YouTube. So nice of you. John Winfield also. Benjamin Morrill, 5 memberships. So kind of you, Ben. Samantha Wiley with also a gifted membership. Thank you to Mumbles459 for resubscribing. Thank you to Eric77 the Red, also who's resubscribed, watching from the UK, which is burning. Skip fire, but the Daily News from the USA is like a fireball rolling down a hill and getting bigger. Thank you to Looney Tunes, Dragon C. Morris resubscribed, the Cyber Chef subscribed with Prime, Godzilla subscribed a few days ago. But the real deal, the real people who I want to talk about are, oh my God, Paige, crap, I've lost them. Help me. I'm here. Hold. Oh God. Thank you so much. I gotta stop this. Thank you so much too. Oddly Magical Brandy, Felt Buzz, Nate Conroy, and Werner Von Alphen, who I owe a video to, and Quinn Osgood. Thank you guys for becoming patrons. You're awesome. You're wonderful. Thank you for supporting the show via Patreon. And thank you, Paige Omek, Maximilian Inhofe, our guy, Andy Vasoyan, and Brent Godin, We're streaming Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 4 p.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Follow the show, Twitter, Bitchuation Pod, TikTok and Instagram, Bitchuation Room. We should probably start a Sao Hong Shu account soon. And remember to fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, and don't just bitch about it. Be about it.